Good evening. I'm Judy Hannell. Everyone at Columbia Arts is so happy that you're able to join us this evening for some holiday stories and poems in both Spanish and English. And let's not forget, a little music as well. I'd like to introduce you to my cast. Kathy Williams, Alejandro Aguilera Cano, Kim Robichaud, Deborah Langlois, Cynthia Yoshida, Irene Fields, Kathleen Morrow, Letty Vaya Moretti, Julie Hatfield, and Joe Garut, our production coordinator. My wishes for everyone are a season filled with joy, peace, love, and hope. And may your 2021 be bright and beautiful. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy. Once upon a time, in the Dutch colonial town later known as Albany, New York, there lived a baker named Van Anderson, who was as honest as he could be. Each morning, he checked his scales and balanced them. He took great care to give customers exactly what they paid for, not more and not less. Van Amsterdam's shop was always busy because people trusted him and because he was a good baker as well. And never was the shop busier than in the days before December 6th, when the Dutch celebrate St. Nicholas Day. At that time of year, people flocked to the baker's shop to buy his fine St. Nicholas cookies, made of gingerbread, iced in red and white. They look just like St. Nicholas as the Dutch know him, tall and thin, with a high red bishop's cap and a long red bishop's cloak. One St. Nicholas morning, the baker was just ready for business when the door of his shop flew open. In walked an old woman wrapped in a black shawl. "I have come for a dozen of your St. Nicholas cookies." Taking a tray, Van Amsterdam counted out 12 cookies. He started to wrap them, but the woman reached out and stopped him. "I asked for a dozen. You have given me only 12.
"Madam, everyone knows that a dozen is 12.
"But I say a dozen is 13. Give me one more."
Van Amsterdam was not a man to bear foolishness. "Madam, my customers get exactly what they pay for, not more and not less."
She turned to go, but then said, "You may keep the cookies, Van Amsterdam. However honest you may be, your heart is small and your fist is tight. Fall again, mount again, learn how to count again." Then she was gone. From that day, everything went wrong in Van Amsterdam's bakery. His bread rose too high or not at all. His pies were sour or too sweet. His cakes crumbled or were chewy. His cookies burnt or were doughy. His customers soon noticed the difference. Before long, most of them were going to other bakers.
"That old woman has bewitched me. Is this how my honesty is rewarded?"
A year passed. The baker grew poorer and poorer. Since he sold little, he baked little, and his shelves were nearly bare. His last few customers slipped away. Finally, on the day before St. Nicholas Day, not one customer came to Van Amsterdam's shop. At day's end, the baker sat alone, staring at his unsold St. Nicholas cookies.
"I wish St. Nicholas could help me now."
Then he closed his shop and went sadly to bed. That night, the baker had a dream. He was a boy again, out in a crowd of happy children, and there, in the midst of them, was St. Nicholas himself. The bishop's white horse stood beside him, its baskets filled with gifts. Nicholas pulled out one gift after another and handed them to the children. But Van Amsterdam noticed something strange. No matter how many presents Nicholas passed out, there were always more to give. In fact, the more he took from the baskets, the more they seemed to hold. Then Nicholas handed a gift to Van Amsterdam. It was one of the baker's own St. Nicholas cookies. Van Amsterdam looked up to thank him, but it was no longer St. Nicholas standing there. Smiling down at him was the old woman with the long black shawl. Van Amsterdam awoke with a start. Moonlight shone through his half-closed shutters as he lay there thinking. But I always give my customers exactly what they pay for, no more and no less. But why not more? The next morning, St. Nicholas Day, the baker rose early. He mixed his gingerbread dough and rolled it out. He molded the shapes and baked them. He iced them in red and white to look just like St. Nicholas. And the cookies were as fine as any he had ever made. Van Amsterdam had just finished icing the cookies when the door flew open. In walked the old woman with the long black shawl. I have come for a dozen of your St. Nicholas cookies. In great excitement, Van Amsterdam counted out 12 cookies. And one more. In this shop, from now on, a dozen is 13. You have learned to count well. You will surely be rewarded. She paid for the cookies and started out. But as the door swung shut, the baker's eyes seemed to play a trick on him. He thought he glimpsed the tail end of a long red coat. As the woman foretold, Van Amsterdam was rewarded. When people heard he counted 13 as a dozen, he had more customers than ever. From there, the practice spread to other towns. Van Amsterdam grew so wealthy that at last all the American colonies counted 13 as a dozen. And that, they say, is how the baker's dozen began. A custom for over a century and alive in some places today. The end. I hope your holidays are filled with the love of family, the joy of friendships, the warmth of traditions, and delicious cookies. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and season's greetings to everyone.
Hola, I'm Letty. A las 12 de la noche. A las 12 de la noche todos los gallos cantaron y en su canto anunciaron que el niño Jesús nació. A las 12 de la noche un gallo me despertó con su canto tan alegre diciendo, Cristo nació. Quiero desearles a todos salud, amor y felicidad. Wishing you all safe, healthy, and happy holiday seasons.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kim. Hi, Irma. This perfectly delightful note is being sent on paper I made myself to tell you what I've been up to. Since it snowed last night, I got up early and made a sled out of old barnwood and a glue gun. I hand-painted it in gold leaf, got out my loom, and made a blanket in peaches and mauves. Then, to make the sled complete, I made a white horse to pull it from some DNA that I had just lying around my craft room. By then, It was time to start making the placemats and napkins for my 20 breakfast guests. I'm serving the old standard Stewart 12-course breakfast, but I'll let you in on a little secret. I didn't have time to make the tables and chairs this morning, so I used the ones I had on hand. Before I moved the table into the dining room, I decided to add just a touch of the holiday spirit. So I repainted the room in pinks and stenciled gold stars on the ceiling. While the homemade bread was rising, I took antique candle molds and made the dishes to use for breakfast. These were made with Hungarian clay, which you can get at almost any Hungarian craft store. Well, I must run. I need to finish the hand-sewn buttonholes on the dress I'm wearing for breakfast. I'll get out the sled and drive this note to the post office as soon as the glue dries on the envelope I'll be making. Hope my breakfast guests don't stay too long. I have 40,000 cranberries to string with bay leaves before my speaking engagement at noon. It's a good thing. Love, Martha. P.S. When I made the ribbon for this typewriter, I used 1/8-inch gold gauze. I soaked the gauze in white grapes and blackberries, which I grew, picked, and crushed last week, just for fun. Dear Martha, I'm writing this on the back of an old shopping list. Pay no attention to the coffee and jelly stains. I'm 20 minutes late getting my daughter off to school, packing a lunch with one hand on the telephone with a dog pound. Seems old Ruff needs bailing out again. Burnt my arm on the curling iron when I was trying to make those cute curly fries. How do they do that? Still can't find the scissors to cut out some snowflakes. Tried using a disposable razor. Trashed the tablecloth. I tried that cranberry thing. Frozen cranberries mushed up after I defrosted them in the microwave. Oh, and don't use Fruity Pebbles in that Rice Krispie snowball recipe unless you like food that resembles puke. Smoke alarm's going off. I'll talk to you later. Love, Irma. This year, we may not have the holiday we expected, but whether you're a Martha Stewart or an Irma Bombeck, we can have the holiday that we create, and we can decorate our lives and those around us with love and joy and kindness. Happy holidays.
Good evening. I'm Deborah. Says a country legend told every year, go to the barn on Christmas Eve and see what the creatures do as long as the long night tips over. Down on their knees they will go, the fire of an old memory whistling through their minds. So I went, wrapped my eyes against the cold. I creaked back the barn door and peered in. From town the church bells spilled their midnight music, and the beast listened, yet they lay in their stalls like stone. Oh, the heretics! Not to remember Bethlehem or the stars as bright as the sun or child born on a bed of straw, to know only of the dissolving now. Still they drowsed on, citizens of the pure, the physical world. They loomed in the dark, powerful of body, peaceful of mind, innocent of history. Brothers, I whispered, it is Christmas, and you are no heretics, but a miracle, immaculate still as when you thundered forth on the morning of creation. As for Bethlehem, that blazing star still sailed the dark, but only looked for me, caught in its light, listening again to its story. I curled against some sleepy beast who nuzzled my hair as though I were a child and warmed me the best it could all night. This poem reminds me of being in a safe place, feeling at peace and sharing goodwill. It is my Christmas wish that our communities remain safe, be at peace with each other and with the world. May the holidays bring you cheer and bright moments.
Hola, mi nombre es Alejandro. Aquí les traigo un cuento que se llama Colores de Navidad. Mis navidades tienen colores que nadie ha visto. Los llevo todos guardados desde que yo era niño. Unos son rojos de fuego, otros plata y zafiro. Algunos son escarlata, otros verdes y amarillos. Esos colores los llevo siempre conmigo escondidos. Nadie comprende de grande los colores que has vivido. Mis navidades tienen colores que nadie ha visto. Los llevo todos guardados desde que yo era niño. Les deseo una feliz Navidad y un próspero año nuevo. En este año difícil que ha sido para todos nosotros, no nada más esta comunidad, para todo el mundo. Ahorita con lo de la pandemia, no estamos cerca de nuestras familias, de nuestros seres queridos. Ahora que tenemos ganas de abrazar, queremos estar juntos, pero no podemos. No podemos por lo que estamos viviendo en esta época, pero hay que desearles de corazón a nuestra familia que estén súper bien, que se cuiden, para que pronto nos podamos abrazar como nunca. Gracias.
Hi, I'm Cynthia. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus. You're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. You're a monster, Mr. Grinch. Your heart ain't got no soul. You're a dirty double-crosser that should go back in your hole, Mr. Grinch. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole. You're a vile one, Mr. Grinch. You've got spinach in your smile. You have all the tender sweetness of a steamy, stinking pile, Mr. Grinch. Given the choice between the two of you, I'd take the steamy, stinking pile. You're a foul one, Mr. Grinch. You's a nasty, wasty skunk. Your halitosis is atrocious, and your trunk is full of junk, Mr. Grinch. The three words that best describe you are as follows, and I quote: stink, stink, stunk. You're a rotter, Mr. Grinch. You're the king of sinful thoughts. Your heart's a dead tomato splotched with moldy purple spots, Mr. Grinch. Your soul is an appalling dump heap, overflowing with the most disgraceful assortment of deplorable rubbish imaginable. Mangled up and tangled up knots. You nauseate me, Mr. Grinch, with a noxious super knots. You're a crooked, dirty jockey, and you ride a crooked horse, Mr. Grinch. You are a 3-decker sauerkraut and toadstool sandwich with arsenic sauce. Even in the Grinchiest of times, a small act of kindness can make a world of difference. When I'm feeling particularly Grinchy, this is something that I like to say to myself that I'm going to share with you. May you know love. May you know joy. May you know peace. May you be well. Happy holidays.
Hola, I'm Letty. Un año más listos para celebrar. Nuevamente la familia nos volvemos a encontrar. En esta fecha hermosa y totalmente especial, celebramos todos juntos Nochebuena y Navidad. No sufras ni llores por los que con nosotros no están. Seguro en nuestra mesa también vendrán a celebrar. Y estarán a la derecha de Jesús, Padre Celestial, viviendo la grandeza de la vida eterna y celebrar las fiestas más bonitas, Nochebuena y Navidad. Esta noche es hermosa, la más hermosa y especial. Está llena de alegría, de paz y felicidad. Tenemos la certeza de que en el mundo hay hermandad. Todos juntos celebramos Nochebuena y Navidad. Les deseo salud, amor y felicidad. Wishing you all safe, healthy, and happy holiday seasons.
Hi, my name's Kathleen. Tomorrow's the big day, Leonard's father said. Christmas, Leonard thought. His house had been decorated for weeks. Holiday music had been playing, and everyone was talking about Santa Claus. He couldn't wait. Leonard brushed his teeth extra hard and extra fast that night. He hugged his mother and father an extra time, and even hugged his mouthy big sister Carly before he went to bed. Leonard closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but nothing happened. He closed his eyes tighter and harder, but he still couldn't sleep. The more he tried to sleep, the more he thought of presents and Santa Claus and cookies and going to Grandma's house. The harder he tried to sleep, the harder he thought of ripping open packages, of laughing and singing Christmas songs. And he thought of his mother's special Christmas pancakes. Then he got worried, remembering what his mouthy big sister Carly had said. Santa wouldn't come if little boys and girls were still awake. Leonard heard Carly close her bedroom door. He heard his mother and father going to bed. The house was silent. Everyone was asleep but him. Leonard buried his head under his blanket and thought about falling asleep as hard as he could. He thought and thought and thought. Leonard opened his eyes, and his bedroom was still dark. The house was silent. But he noticed outside his window there was a little orange and pink light in the sky over the house and across the street. He knew that's where the sun came up. It was Christmas morning. Leonard hopped out of bed and listened. The house was still quiet. Santa must have gone already. He tiptoed down the hall and checked his parents' room. They were still asleep. Mouthy big sister Carly was still asleep too. Leonard knew not to open any presents before anyone woke up, but he had to see what Santa had brought. He'd just take a peek and then wait in bed until everyone woke up. Quietly, he went downstairs. It was dark, but he found a switch and turned on the light.
The tree was there, but there were no presents. No bright-colored wrapping paper. No bows. He couldn't believe it. He stepped closer to the Christmas tree. It was just like he left it last night. He ran to the dining room. No presents. He ran to the kitchen. No presents. He checked under the tables, in the hallway, in the closets. There were no Christmas presents. Santa had known he was still awake and passed them by. He'd ruined Christmas for everyone. He didn't know what else to do, so he sat down on the floor and began to cry. Leonard opened his eyes, and his mother and father were both there, holding him, asking him what was the matter. No presents, he cried. No Santa, and it's all my fault. I didn't get to sleep on time, and Santa passed us by. He buried his face in his mother's bathrobe. Leonard, honey, it's okay, his mother said. What are you talking about? His father said. You said tomorrow was the big day, Leonard sniffed. And today is tomorrow. Tomorrow is the big day, his father said. Tomorrow, not today. Today is Christmas Eve, which is a big day. Santa comes tonight. Then I didn't miss it, Leonard said. I didn't make Santa pass us by. No, of course not, his parents said, hugging him. Leonard pulled away from his parents. Then I better get to bed right now. I don't want to be awake when I'm supposed to be asleep. There's plenty of time for that, honey, his mother said. Since we're all up, why don't I make some really special Christmas Eve pancakes? Christmas Eve pancakes, too? Wow, Leonard said. Today really is a big day. Happy holidays, everyone. I hope you sleep well on all of your holiday eves and have very sweet dreams.
Hola, mi nombre es Alejandro y aquí les traigo un poema que se llama El nacimiento del niño Jesús. Hoy se recuerda una historia que ocurrió hace muchos años. En Belén nació Jesús, en un pobre y frío establo. De la Galilea venían buscando un alojamiento. María estaba de parto y los dolores sufriendo. Por fin ha nacido un niño. Los dos están muy contentos. Rezan mirando al pequeño, mostrando agradecimiento. Como estaba desnudito, la gente muy preocupada le llevaron ropa y mantas para que se calentara. De lejos fueron 3 reyes a llevarles unos regalos, guiados por una estrella que los traía del oriente. Los vecinos y pastores extendieron el rumor. Acababan de nacer, clamaban, el Salvador. De todas partes del mundo fueron llegando a Belén, con una gran alegría y con regalos también. Por eso en la Navidad recordamos que ese día el niño Dios vino al mundo entre risas y alegrías. Hace muchos años vino Jesús y la gente ahorita piensa mucho en Jesús porque tenemos fe, creemos en Él, que nos va a cuidar, nos va a proteger de esta pandemia, pero también hay que cuidarnos porque no todo está en Jesús, también en nosotros. Queremos ver a nuestras familias, queremos estar juntos, tenemos que hacer lo posible para que nos vaya muy bien. Gracias a Dios por darnos la vida, hay que estar agradecidos. Muchas gracias.
Hi, I'm Irene. It was Christmas Eve, and the Frost Fairies were busy getting ready for Christmas Day. First, they spread the loveliest white snow carpet over the rough, hard ground. Then they hung the bushes and trees with icicles that flashed like diamonds. They planned to draw beautiful frost pictures on the windows later on to surprise the little children in the morning. The stars shone brightly, and the moon sent floods of light into every nook and corner. How could anyone think of sleeping with there such a glory outside? Jessie and Fred had gone to bed very early, so they might be the first to shout Merry Christmas in the morning, but their eyes would not stay shut. "Oh, dear, it must be almost morning," said Fred. "Let us creep softly down and see if Santa is still there and catch him before he rides off." Hand in hand, they tiptoed downstairs to the dining room and peeked out the big window. Surely that was something climbing up the roof of Cousin Nellie's house across the street. It must be old Santa. Fred gave a chuckle of delight. To be sure, the reindeer were queer-looking objects, and the sleigh was such a funny shape, but the children were satisfied. The old fir tree, with high branches almost touching the roof, knew all about those shadows. But it was so old that no one could ever understand a word it said and the many tales it told. "There's something scratching on the door," whispered Jessie. But it was only a mouse who had sniffed the delightful odors of the Christmas goodies and was trying his best to find a way into the pantry and test them with his sharp teeth. "Come," said Jessie. "We'll turn to icicles if we stay much longer." So back upstairs they scampered. Papa had been to town on an errand, and it was quite late when he came home. As he was hunting in his pockets for the key, he heard a pitiful cry, and looking down, he saw a big white cat with a tiny kitten in her mouth. "Poor thing," said Papa. "You shall come inside till morning." Papa saw that Santa Claus had been there and left the nicest wagon for Fred and a warm wool knit cap right in the middle of it. When Papa left the room, Puss and her kitty were curled up comfortably on the rug, singing their sleepy song. The sun was already shining brightly through the dining room window when Jessie and Fred made their appearance in the morning. Straight to the Christmas tree they ran. Then Fred just laughed with delight, for right in the middle of his new cap lay the cutest white kitten with big blue eyes and a wee pink nose. While standing close by as if to guard her darling from danger was good old Mother Puss. "I never had a live Christmas present before," said Fred. "Now I know Santa Claus read the letter I threw up the chimney because I told him to bring me a kitten, and here it is." Papa smiled and looked at Mama. And then everybody shouted, "Merry Christmas," all at once. In this, the coldest time of the year, be warmed by the love that surrounds you from your family, your friends, your neighbors. Wrap yourself in it. And warm others with your love, including those who might seem to be a bit of a stray, like the two kitties in our story.
Hi, I'm Julie. 'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap, when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen,
on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blixen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a turn of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." May you all treasure many magical moments this Christmas.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus. You're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. You're a monster, Mr. Grinch. Your heart ain't got no soul. You're a dirty double-crosser that should go back in your hole, Mr. Grinch. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole. You're a vile one, Mr. Grinch. You've got spinach in your smile. You have all the tender sweetness of a steamy, stinking pile, Mr. Grinch. Given the choice between the two of you, I'd take the steamy, stinking pile. You're a foul one, Mr. Grinch. You's a nasty, wasty skunk. Your halitosis is atrocious, and your trunk is full of junk, Mr. Grinch. The 3 words that best describe you are as follows, and I quote, stink, stank, stunk. May you know love, may you know joy, may you know peace, may you be well. Happy holidays.